You're watching the Koam Morning News on Fox 14. Today, a car crash on Highway 37 kills 2 people and leaves 3 injured.
A chilly morning throughout the 4 states, but we've got to break down a road closure right through the middle of Joplin. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, young children line up to receive the first doses of the Pfizer vaccine. We'll have all that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the Koam Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. A portion of Main Street in Joplin will be closed today. The city is bringing in a crane to untangle the American flag on the City Hall's rooftop and restring the pole for the Missouri state flag. Main Street from 4th to 7th will be closed from 7 a.m. to noon today for the work. Drivers should use streets to the east or west to get around the work. A Cherokee County, Kansas man pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. Authorities say Mark Hopkins II of Columbus shot and killed Blaze Shank of Scammon and Kylan Shook of Pittsburgh in June of 2020. Hopkins also faces an aggravated escape from custody charge after he and another Cherokee County jail inmate escaped in May. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol is investigating the death of a woman found 3 miles north of Commerce, Oklahoma. The OSBI says that woman was identified as 47-year-old Tony Moran, also known as Tony Torres. Torres was arrested for the 2003 drowning death of her 11-month-old son. A judge found that Torres was insane and ordered her to the care of a mental hospital. She was released in 2011. Joplin police released the names of 3 officers involved in the fatal shooting of an assault suspect. They are Officer Pete Box, Officer Daryl Klink, and Sergeant Jason Stump. JPD says all 3 officers are still currently on paid administrative leave per department policy and procedure. Police department says the officers were involved in the fatal shooting of Joseph Endicott, who was a suspect in an assault. Authorities say the investigation is ongoing and they have not released why the officers shot Endicott. A crash in Purdy, Missouri kills 2 people and leaves 3 others injured. The crash happened on Highway 37. Highway Patrol says a car driven by Taylor McLaughlin from Monette crossed the center line and hit a passing car. McLaughlin and the driver of the other car, 33-year-old Maria Hayros, died at the scene. 3 others were injured in the crash. A former inmate at the federal prison in Leavenworth, Kansas, claims in a lawsuit that he was left untreated for days after suffering a paralyzing injury. The lawsuit filed last week on behalf of 58-year-old Brent Keeler named several prison officers and medical staff. He was serving a sentence for distributing methamphetamine when he slipped and fell in 2019. The lawsuit says the fall eventually left Keeler unable to move or feel anything below his abdomen. Doctors later did surgery, but he remained paralyzed. New laws went into effect this week in Oklahoma. One of those gives people a new way to get their alcohol at bars and restaurants. The bill will allow customers to serve themselves beer and wine from an automated machine. Patrick Lively, president of the Oklahoma Craft Brewers Association, says he believes the law will also help with the state's ongoing workforce shortage.
And there are new struggles to deal with staffing. And so the ability for them to adjust and adapt and have some flexibility and maybe get more people in their doors with less staff, I think has to be seen as a positive thing.
New legislature has cleared the path for any Oklahoma bars or restaurants to use these self-serve machines. Later in the show, we'll hear from a restaurant owner in Grove on how this could help with a staffing shortage. So you may think you've seen a big hole, but you haven't seen anything like this. Astronomers are trying to figure out how a hole that's 250 light years wide punched its way into the N44 nebula. This glowing cloud of gas and dust is filled with stars of different ages. But look at that big hole of blackness the Hubble telescope uncovered. Scientists call it a super bubble. They think it may have come from stellar winds, though wind velocities inside the bubble do not support that idea. Another theory is an exploding star carved it out, sort of like a cosmic cavern. Researchers did find a supernova remnant in the hole and say based on the 5 million year age difference between stars at its rim, multiple chain reaction star forming events are likely. Still, we should be pretty safe from those explosions. N44 is 170,000 light years away from Earth. Just
That's amazing.
A little bit.
Look at that. Right there in the middle of it, too.
How pretty.
Because nebulas are kind of like I won't say babysit stars, but something, you know. Sorry, I have TVs on both sides, folks. That's why I'm absolutely amazed by this picture. That's why I'm like walking back and forth. I promise I'm looking at the
And my
TVs
TV's down here.
Yeah, no, that's too cool. Hey, check out this gorgeous site outside of Television City right here. Technically, sunrise won't be here until 7:46 this morning, but that's a pretty cool looking start to our morning. Now it is cold, I'm going to tell you that much. 32 right now in Joplin compared to 43 in Chanute. Monette still below the freezing mark of 31. Stockton, that's not a wind chill, that is an actual temperature, has dipped all the way down to 28 and 36 right now in Miami. Our freeze warning still persists for our counties in turquoise throughout West Missouri and northeast Oklahoma. Our frost advisories right along the state line right here, they have been lifted for the majority of southeast Kansas, and that is because we got some cloud cover that's been hanging on. That has helped us trap in what little heat we did have yesterday, but when you clear off like that, that's when those temperatures drop very, very quickly. And you know, that's what, you know, Stockton up there, like I said, 28 degrees. As far as what we're looking at from the national perspective, there's a great diagonal line of high pressure that's going to act as a blocking force. It's going to keep all the precipitation down to the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, and then really prevent anything from popping up on the west of us. So we're going to have some dry weather and eventually some warmer weather as we head toward the weekend. Today's still abnormally cool for this time of year. We're only going to make it up to the mid-50s, and overnight, we'll have the reemergence of that patchy frost as well. But any green that we do see pop up here on Future Track, not even going to be able to hit the ground. It's just going to evaporate up there with that high pressure and clearing skies. Thursday night, we talked about the importance of the cloud cover when it comes to trapping in some of that heat and kind of helping us out during the nighttime hours. But I think those frost advisories, we may not see the freeze warnings, perhaps. Those will push off to the east, but we're going to see those frost advisories reemerge for Thursday night into Friday morning as well. But after that, we are headed up in the right direction. High 50s on Friday. Why stop there? How about the 60s on Saturday and Sunday? Close to 70 on Sunday. Don't forget to set those clocks back. Grab yourself an extra hour of sleep. And then Tanya, look at Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's a far cry from where we were at the beginning of this week.
I know, I'm looking at those temperatures for next week. Those will be awesome.
It's about time.
Yeah. Well, up next, two former presidents of global soccer governing bodies face fraud indictments. And later, members of the Air National Guard return home after helping Afghan evacuees relocate to New Jersey. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
Captivating.
Young kids across the country have started to get their coronavirus shots. The first were administered minutes after the CDC authorized them earlier this week. Laura Podesta reports from New York.
Millions of U.S. children are lining up to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
Done deal. You did so well, Elizabeth.
Pfizer's reduced dose pediatric shots began to be administered on Tuesday night, shortly after federal officials approved it for 5 to 11-year-olds.
In clinical trials, vaccine side effects were mild, self-limiting, and similar to those seen in adults with other vaccines recommended for children. The most common side effect was a sore arm.
Surgeon General Vivek Murthy offered a personal endorsement of the vaccine.
My wife and I will be taking our 5-year-old son to get vaccinated, and we will be so grateful that we can more confidently send him out into the world.
Parents rushed to book appointments for their children, many expressing relief that they could finally get immunized.
When I heard that there was a chance for the kids to be vaccinated, we signed up at the moment that we could.
It was such a huge relief after the last 20 months of really just keeping them at home and just doing everything we possibly could to keep them safe.
Not everyone is on board, though. Nearly a third of parents in a recent survey said they weren't planning to have their kids vaccinated immediately. Almost another third said they won't vaccinate their children at all. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Coronavirus vaccines for babies and toddlers under the age of 5 are now being tested. They're not expected to become available for at least several months. Well, the holiday season is approaching, and that means it's time to make your cup of joe more festive. Starbucks has released the 4 designs for this year's holiday cups, and they are modeled after themes of wrapping paper. They're called ribbons on a gift box, holiday lights, and a candy cane. Of course, it's not just cups. Holiday themed drinks are also back. New this year is the iced sugar cookie almond milk latte, which is Starbucks' first holiday beverage made with non-dairy milk. It's also served over ice in response to the growing popularity of cold coffee beverages. The new cups will start hitting Starbucks locations today.
Stall for me. I'm not doing film noir with a beautiful sunrise like this.
Okay, well,
Are you one of the? Are you a frequent Starbuckser?
I probably would be because I like having my coffee in the morning, but I don't know what time they open. But I never make it to Starbucks before I get here. It's on the wrong end of town.
I think my daughter goes to Starbucks a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to?
Caramel frappuccino.
You are. You see, I love people that walk in and know exactly what they
Caramel
want.
Frappuccino with extra caramel
It's
drizzle. You can go without the.
It's probably a good thing. I'm coming back, folks.
No whip. No whip.
No, it's probably a good thing I don't go to Starbucks because I would just, I would just stare at the menu. I wouldn't know what I was doing.
And I don't care if it's winter and it's cold outside. I still like the frozen coffee. I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff.
Oh, you like iced coffee?
Yeah.
Nah, you can't go wrong with that.
Now, if it's like I prefer the iced coffee. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to go with it.
The reason that Tanya loves Starbucks is because they actually do not have carts in the parking lot and she doesn't have to worry about it. Live look outside of Television City where we have a gorgeous, gorgeous beginning of a sunrise on our hands. It'll officially be over Joplin at 7:46 this morning, and there we are over 7th and Rangeline. This is what I was fiddling with earlier because I was not going to take that black and white shot. It's just way too pretty this morning. 32 degrees is where we stand. There is a definitive chill in the air. 28 degrees in Stockton. These are not wind chills. These are actual temperatures. Monette, 31, also below the freezing point. Whole lot better out in southeast Kansas where we have a slew of 40s, and that's why the freeze warnings persist through southwest Missouri and the turquoise. The purple indicating a frost advisory. We've been able to lift those for the majority of southeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma also, excuse me, in that freeze warning. And minus where we lifted them through portions of Kansas and Oklahoma. At one point in time, they were going panhandle all the way to the Atlantic. So there's a whole bunch of cold air rolling through the Midwest right now. The reason we were able to lift them, cloud cover. So everything else is going to persist till about 9 a.m. And that's when those will expire. Also, a little warm sliver, warmer, I guess, than other temperatures. I don't want to call it warm, but a little sliver on the color contour, if you will, coming out of Texas and Oklahoma to our western counties. But the eastern portion gets that cold Canadian air coming off of the jet stream. High pressure system, diagonal form from southwest up to northeast, and as it pushes off to the Atlantic, what that means, nothing on the backside of it, clearing skies. We'll have a whole bunch of sunshine here before it's all said and done, and that'll lift us up into the mid-50s. Now, overnight, not going to be surprised with the reemergence of patchy frost as our wind chills will only be in the low 30s. A 7-day forecast, though, that will eventually lift us up into the 60s for the weekend. Reason that alert day is there on Friday, that's just for the frost advisories. I think we'll be able to escape the freeze ones, though. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Two of soccer's biggest names, former President Sepp Blatter of FIFA and Michael Platini of UEFA. They've been indicted for fraud. For those of you not familiar with the name Sepp Blatter, S-E-P-P as in Paul, Blatter, B-L-A-T-T as in Tom, E-R. Please Google that name and YouTube it, and you will hear a phenomenal statement when he tells everybody in the room, I am president of everyone now. Needless to say, he does not have a small ego. Patrick Snell with more on an investigation that dates back some 6 years.
Two of the biggest names in football have been indicted in Switzerland on fraud charges. Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter and former UEFA President Michel Platini. Now, Blatter, once the most powerful man in football as president of FIFA for 17 years, and Platini, one of the most revered and talented footballers of all time, turned president of European football's governing body, UEFA. The Swiss Attorney General accusing both men of unlawfully arranging payment of 2 million Swiss francs, that's over $2 million today, from FIFA to Platini in 2011. Now, in a statement, prosecutors adding this payment damaged FIFA's assets and unlawfully enriched Platini. In the view of the Attorney General, the accused have committed the offences listed above. Both the 85-year-old Blatter and Platini, who's 66, deny any wrongdoing. Blatter, the FIFA president who oversaw the first Men's World Cup in Asia in 2002 when South Korea and Japan co-hosted. The first Men's World Cup in Africa in 2010 when South Africa hosted. He also oversaw the announcement of Qatar 2022. That's next year's Men's World Cup. In a statement sent to CNN, Blatter saying, "I look forward to the trial before the Federal Criminal Court with optimism, and I hope that this story will come to an end and that all the facts will be dealt with properly. Regarding the payment of the sum of 2 million francs from FIFA to Michel Platini, I can only repeat myself. It was based on an oral contract that regulated Platini's advisory activities for FIFA between 1998 and 2002. Blatter adding that the payment to Platini was approved by all responsible FIFA bodies and that Platini paid tax on the amount at his Swiss place of residence. Michel Platini also responding to CNN saying, "I fully challenge these unfounded and unfair accusations." Part of a FIFA statement reading, the sum of 2 million Swiss francs was supposedly due to be paid for work carried out by Mr. Platini more than 10 years before. There are no written records of any such agreement. FIFA has already taken steps in the Swiss courts to recover this sum from both individuals as it considers the money to have been illicitly paid by one to the other. If and when the funds are successfully recovered, they will be channeled back into football development as they should have been in the first place. UEFA declining CNN's request for comment.
My apologies that the aforementioned press conference was not included in that story. I'm sure there were contractual rights about what video could be played. But if you need a good laugh on this Thursday morning, once again, just YouTube, Sepp Blatter, I am the president of everyone now. Be back with more KOM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Four-state hero. Thomas Virgo from Joplin, Missouri, a member of the U.S. Army 110th Engineer Battalion. Virgo fought in Operation Southern Watch in 2000 and Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2005. We thank you, Thomas Virgo, this morning's four-state hero. 19 members of the Alaska Air National Guard's 176th Wing are settling into life back at home after a roughly 2-month mission in New Jersey, helping Afghan refugees. Here's their story.
Head of the Alaska Air National Guard's 176th Wing.
So when we show up in our uniform, that is the one part of the peace we bring.
Brigadier General Anthony Stratton heard stories from his troops who processed Afghan evacuees in New Jersey. Staff Sergeant Cameron Rose recalled one of them he met.
He received injuries fighting the Taliban, holding them off at the airport to get more people on a plane, and barely got on the plane himself. Took rounds in the arm, got infected. He had an amputation when he was in Germany.
17 members of the wing arrived at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst September 11th. They served as part of Task Force Liberty in support of Operations Allies Welcome, but they had work to do before they could begin to help the evacuees.
When we arrived there, the medical tent was being set up, so we had to figure things out just like that.
Staff Sergeant Liana Chaitluk is among those who volunteered for the mission.
I was born in Brazil, so I've been through the whole naturalization process. I know immigration is not a simple, quick process, and I understood the anxieties that they had.
The troops worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, and not just in New Jersey. 2 members of the 176th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron also helped evacuees at Wisconsin's Voke Air National Guard Base. That included Staff Sergeant Nathan McKeever.
You could just see really the joy in their faces from almost a sense of relief. They were happy to be here. They were ready to set things aside, the stresses or whatever they had been through, and they were ready to just start a new life.
Thank you.
Gratitude to the troops, and not just from their boss, but the thousands of people they also aided.
The troops said they worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. We appreciate them. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, your favorite Warner Brothers and Warner sister are back for a new season of Animaniacs. We'll have details. Yeah. And a deadly attack kills 20 people at a major hospital in Kabul, Afghanistan. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
4 States Most Watched News starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:30. Let's take a look at today's top stories. A portion of Main Street in Joplin will be closed today. The city is bringing in a crane to untangle the American flag on City Hall's rooftop and restring the pole for the Missouri state flag. Main Street from 4th to 7th will be closed from 7 a.m. to noon today for the work. Drivers should use streets to the east or west to get around the work. A Cherokee County, Kansas man pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. Authorities say Mark Hopkins II of Columbus shot and killed Blaze Shank of Scammon and Kylan Shook of Pittsburgh in June of 2020. Hopkins also faces an aggravated escape from custody charge after he and another Cherokee County jail inmate escaped in May. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol is investigating the death of a woman found 3 miles north of Commerce, Oklahoma. The USBI says that woman was identified as 47-year-old Tony Moran, also known as Tony Torres. Torres was arrested for the 2003 drowning death of her 17-month-old son. A judge found Torres was insane and ordered her to the care of a mental hospital. She was released in 2011. Joplin police released the names of 3 officers involved in the fatal shooting of an assault suspect. They are Officer Pete Box, Officer Daryl Klink, and Sergeant Jason Stump. The JPD says all 3 officers are still currently on paid administrative leave per department policy and procedure. The police department says the officers were involved in the fatal shooting of Joseph Endicott, who was a suspect in an assault. Authorities say the investigation is ongoing. They've not released why the officers shot Endicott. A crash in Purdy, Missouri kills 2 people and leaves 3 others injured. The crash happened on Highway 37. Highway Patrol says a car driven by Taylor McLaughlin from Monette crossed the center line and hit a passing car. McLaughlin and the driver of the other car, 33-year-old Maria Hayros, died at the scene. 3 others were injured in the crash. Former inmate at the federal prison in Leavenworth, Kansas, claims in a lawsuit that he was left untreated for days after suffering a paralyzing injury. A lawsuit filed last week on behalf of 58-year-old Brent Kaler named several prison officers and medical staff. He was serving a sentence for distributing methamphetamine when he slipped and fell in 2019. The lawsuit says the fall eventually left Kaler unable to move or feel anything below his abdomen. Doctors later did surgery, but he remained paralyzed. A number of Oklahoma laws took effect this week. They include one that could change the way customers consume their alcohol while also handling workforce shortages. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky speaks with industry experts and the manager of a restaurant in Grove, Oklahoma for this Making It Work report.
Jason Evans has been in the restaurant industry for a long time.
Over in Joplin at Red Hot and Blue with Mitch Allen, and was there for a few years, and then ended up going to Wichita and ran some places, Old Chicago, Fox and Hounds.
And says in all his experience, he's never seen a workforce shortage this bad.
I've been doing this a long time and never seen a situation like we're in right now.
But some newly passed Oklahoma legislation is aimed at fixing this, while also giving customers a more enjoyable experience. The new law allows patrons to serve themselves beer and wine from an automated machine. Patrick Lively from the Craft Brewers Association of Oklahoma says he believes this is a step in the right direction after seeing the industry struggle for over 18 months and believes the new law could help with that.
We're seeing people reduce their hours because they can't staff them or keep portions of their restaurants or bars closed because they're unstaffed. So, I mean, I definitely think there's a huge motivation there.
Evans says although the law is new, he won't rule out bringing it to his own business.
They've got them at baseball stadiums and different things where, you know, you just put your cup on the thing and that little spigot deal and it fills up your beer and then you just go on down the road. There's definitely some potential for us to be able to do something like that here.
Especially as he and other area businesses say they struggle due to low staffing.
Because everybody's so short-staffed. I mean, I literally have cooks in the back that are fielding phone calls from other restaurants saying, hey, can you come work for me?
In Grove, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
Self-serve alcohol machines will serve people only up to 32 ounces of beer and 10 ounces of wine. Employees will be able to keep track of the exact amount and make sure the customer is served and charged properly. Well, it's time to finish up that Halloween candy. November 4th is National Candy Day. Yay. In the late 13th century, Middle English first began using the word candy. Borrowed from the Old French
Sucre candy.
Sucre candy. It's derived in turn from the Persian quandi, cane sugar. According to the National Day of Calendar, I'm not sure when these sentences begin and end, I'm so sorry. To the calendar, sugar was not always readily available, so instead people made the first candies from honey. By the 18th century, the first candy likely came to America from Britain and France. 4 days after Halloween, you should be able to celebrate this day.
Yeah.
Either you have leftover candy or can sneak some of your kids' stash. My kids have already ate theirs. It's long gone.
I know where a stash of Twizzlers is.
Uh-huh.
I know where this Twizzler stash is located.
Okay,
What's
if
your
you want to
go-to?
celebrate, post your favorite candy on social media. Post a picture with it with the hashtag National Candy Day.
What's your go-to?
Reese's? Peanut butter. Anything Reese's.
Peanut butter cups?
Anything Reese's. I like peanut butter cup. I like, I like Fast Breaks.
I was
But
gonna
those
say
aren't
your
really
Fast Break
Halloween
bar.
candies. Yeah.
Like in my more formidable years, I worked at American Freightways and worked an odd shift from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. For those of you down south, you know that on every corner is a 7-Eleven. Spree and a big gulp. Yeah, breakfast of champions.
Do you mix them together?
Don't take me as a picture of health, folks. But yeah, it got to the point where the clerk would actually have my thing of Spree ready for me when I walked in the morning.
Little sugar. To keep
In the
you
words
going.
of Natalie Merchant in 10,000 Maniacs, candy everybody wants. Tanya was talking about the Joplin Main Street closure. I want to give you kind of an in-depth view here, and we can use the Skywatch Storm Tracker to illustrate that as they're doing some flag work on City Hall. So remember, from 4th Street down to 7th Street, Main Street right here is going to be closed until the noon hour. Now we're getting to that point in time where if you're going east or west, I know we're getting close to school, but please, if you're unfamiliar with those other thoroughfares, just watch out for the kiddos. That's kind of just why I wanted to point that out. Gorgeous shot outside of Television City as the sun begins to rise. And there we are over 7th and Rangeline, where it is a chilly one, sitting at 32 degrees right now. But no worries, because we're going to end up in the mid-50s today and keep rising on the thermometer to the point where we get into the 60s on Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Hi, there's something to talk about on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. It's essentially something we'll probably revisit here coming up. Is it too early to start with Christmas? Comes off of a bar who won't let you play Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas until December 1. And yeah, 55% of you, we've seen this flip. 55% of you say, yeah, too early to start visiting Christmas. KOAM News Now Facebook page and KOAMNewsNow.com/vote. Warner Brothers and the Warner Sister, they're back, along with Pinky and the Brain in the new season of Animaniacs. I didn't even know it was still on the air. However, Rick Damigella, he knows all.
We can do this in a calm and professional manner or zany antics. Antics! Antics! Cue the antics!
Yakko, Wacko, Dot, and Pinky and the Brain are back in a new season of Animaniacs. More importantly, their voices are by the same performers who created the characters in the 1990s.
Who are these things? Not a Hulu subscriber, I'm guessing. We'll get you a 7-day free trial.
We've all been very, very blessed to continue to work consistently since Animaniacs, before Animaniacs, during Animaniacs, and since on lots of different things. But there are always going to be those ones that are dearest to your hearts, you know, and this has always been that for all of us.
We were kind of free there, but she was cute and she was little and had a flounce skirt, and they had given me lines that led me to believe that she was, you know, kind of a flirty, cute little thing, and she was, being cute was her thing. And so, by God, I tried to affect a cute voice.
What are they going to do tomorrow night?
Try to take over the world. It has been 27 years, and Brain still hasn't taken over the world, and it's given him a bit of an edge. And that is the sort of if there's anything new about this Pinky and the Brain, is that Brain's not too unwilling to, employ the odd death ray.
We often say that we get paid to do used to get us in trouble in high school, and to do it with people whom you would choose to have in your life. People often ask, when you guys weren't doing Pinky and the Brain, did you guys keep in touch? Of course, I love this guy. Mo is a family member.
Totally insane.
In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damagella.
New season debuts tomorrow on Hulu. We'll be back right after this.
And now to the skyrocketing prices of prescription drugs. Democratic leaders just unveiled a plan to cut cost of a sometimes life-saving medicine. But as Chris Van Cleve reports, the drug industry is spending big to keep that from happening.
Marilyn Rose's chronic myeloid leukemia would be a death sentence without her daily medication.
I say it's my stay alive pill.
But that stay alive pill can cost up to $10,000 a month. She worries without a curb on prescription drug prices, her bill could soar.
It's a miracle that the drug exists, but the idea that I'm beholden to it is really a little scary.
The new compromise plan on Capitol Hill would offer some relief, gradually allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices similar to private insurers for the first time, while capping out-of-pocket costs at $2,000 and setting limits on the cost of insulin.
This is the time to get real relief to senior citizens who are getting mugged at the pharmacy counter all across the country.
The pharmaceutical industry has spent nearly $263 million on lobbying so far this year, employing 3 lobbyists for every member of Congress.
They have really endless resources to throw at shaping the outcomes of legislation.
Millions of those dollars are campaign donations. Earlier this year, Congressman Scott Peters sparked protests outside his San Diego district office when he came out against a plan to cut drug costs for seniors. He's received nearly $130,000 from the industry. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema's gotten about $100,000, and New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez has taken in nearly $80,000.
I'm curious what message that sends.
Bottom line is I'm supporting a price negotiation bill that has been worked out. What I've said since the very beginning of the discussion, how do we ensure that consumers at the counter get relief?
New Jersey is home to a number of pharmaceutical companies. All 3 of these lawmakers say they support this compromise measure, adding it will save billions of dollars. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Washington.
Jersey is home to a number of pharmaceutical companies. All 3 lawmakers say they support this compromise measure, saying it will save billions. The ongoing chip shortage is hitting Nintendo. The video game maker is cutting production of the Switch because it cannot get the chips for them. Reports say Nintendo will make 20% fewer Switch consoles through the end of its fiscal year, which wraps in March. That amounts to about 24 million fewer units. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
A deadly attack in the capital city of Kabul is the latest of challenges for Taliban rule in Afghanistan. Officials say at least 20 people were killed after blasts and gunfire were heard at a major hospital. ISIS-K, prime suspect. They've attacked this hospital before, as a matter of fact, but so have the Taliban. In fact, suicide bombers linked to the former insurgents hit this very same facility a decade ago. Nick Patton-Walsh with the latest on Tuesday's attack.
The key military hospital in Kabul, the Sardar Mohammed Daud Khan Hospital, was attacked today, said the Taliban. They claimed that they had the attack under control within 15 minutes. Witnesses inside said how they had to shelter and protect themselves from the attackers. The Taliban said that was ISIS. what was once Afghanistan's insurgency, the Taliban, now governing the country and facing a more extreme Islamist insurgency of their own. The Taliban said 15 minutes later they had the situation under control and that they'd used military helicopters, presumably those taken from the previous government when it fled, to help in controlling the situation, along with the deployment of their special forces. But while they said, the Taliban, that there were no casualties inside the hospital, health officials have suggested the death toll continued to mount. The Taliban saying that ISIS wanted to target civilians and saying that civilians indeed had been killed in the perimeter of the hospital. But it will be a stark reversal, frankly, for long-term observers of this conflict, that it is now the Taliban who used to, in fact, be the ones attacking hospitals when the government was in place, that now face the threat of this Islamist insurgency. ISIS raging in many different cities, responsible for mass casualty attacks, and now it seems capable of penetrating some of the securer parts of Kabul. It comes at a time, though, of deepening economic problems, winter onsetting, and certainly some bid perhaps to gain an element of control over the economy too. Today was announced by the Taliban when they said they will be banning foreign currencies apart from the local Afghani. A terrifying attack, though, certainly one from which the death toll continued to rise in the hours after which it happened, and one, I say, which reminds people, frankly, how vulnerable the Taliban are in government here with security issues, particularly with the persistent threat and attacks that ISIS are capable of putting on. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, London.
All right, let's jump into our Joplin Main Street closure that started at 7 o'clock this morning and will run all the way to the noon hour. It will be for Main Street. Going to do some work on City Hall and bringing a crane in. So please avoid anywhere from 4th Street down to 7th Street. That is our Main Street closure in Joplin. For those of you that take a morning run through there, our own Bill Vickery, well, he loves to take a morning run every now and then. Great marathon runner. Probably just best thing to do OSHA-wise, stay away from these areas. Also, too, if your detour takes you east or west and you're not familiar with those side streets, please be very careful with the kiddos out and about. What a gorgeous start outside of Television City as the glow cloud begins to make its way over the horizon. And there we are at 7th and Range Line, the sunlight illuminating the church steeple. It's a chilly one, though. Bundle up, 32 degrees. We're right at the freezing mark in Joplin, and we've dipped below it. 31 in Carthage, 31 in Stockton. A little bit better off throughout southeast Kansas, where earlier we had the 40s, and that's why we were able to lift the frost advisories. Now, still have the freeze warnings lasting until 9 a.m. for southwest Missouri and just a sliver along the county line that indicate those frost advisories. But now we got a nice little gap, and a large part of that is because of the cloud cover we have throughout portions of central Kansas ranging into southeast Kansas for our counties. That's reflectivity picked up by the sweeping radar, nothing hitting the ground. As a matter of fact, high pressure system that runs diagonally from the southwest up to the northeast. That is the result of us being very dry and also gives us a chance to warm up. As we progress into Thursday afternoon, we'll look at highs in the mid-50s for both Thursday and Friday, and then say hello to the 60s for Saturday and Sunday. Don't forget to set those clocks back on Sunday, too. Bill, pick up an extra hour of sleep. We'll be back. Wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. CBS News projects New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has won a second term. Murphy's narrow victory over Republican challenger Jack Ciattarelli makes him the first Democratic governor to be reelected in New Jersey since 1977. It comes after Democrats suffered an Election Day blow in Virginia, where GOP Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin defeated Terry McAuliffe. The nation's first COVID-19 vaccine for children ages 5 to 11 made its debut after getting final approval from the CDC. Thousands of pediatricians pre-ordered the mini doses, and Pfizer says it expects to ship about 11 million in the coming days. Former Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs appeared in a Las Vegas court day after a deadly crash. Prosecutors say Ruggs was driving 156 miles per hour with a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit when his Corvette slammed into the back of an SUV. 23-year-old woman and her dog were killed. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Temperatures right now ranging anywhere from just below the freezing mark all the way up to 43. So we got quite a wide variety. We'll all kind of even out after the cloud cover dissipates out to the west, and we'll have mostly sunny skies up into the mid 50s later on. Now remember, overnight, I don't think the freeze warnings will reemerge, but the frost advisories, they're going to be there as our wind chills will dip into the low 30s. But look at where we're headed on the thermometer, all the way up to the mid to high 50s on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday squarely in the 60s.
Well, they're not just for beauty pageant winners and toddlers. Two tiaras set to hit the auction block are catching the attention of jewelers and collectors. The two pieces of headgear are parts of jewelry believed to have been owned by Josephine Bonaparte. Awesome. Historians believe Napoleon Bonaparte's sister Caroline gave them to his first wife as a gift. The first one is gold with red engravings of classical portraits. The second is also gold with cameo portraits of Greek deities, including Zeus, Medusa, and Pan. And the two tiaras are expected to fetch close to $700,000 combined when they go up for bid in London next month. And if somebody is looking for a Christmas present for me, that is what I want.
I'll get right on that. Let's hope we can do some online bidding. See you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
Affordable? Yeah, we got that.